What dire warning from your parents turned out to be BS? Story 1. Content warning. Extremely abusive family with mention of R. Scroll to the timestamp on screen to skip this story. That if I ever told anyone about the abuse, I'd be taken away from them, put in a foster family, and that my foster family would R me to death, decapitate me, and throw my head in the canal. Oh, and that the only reason why my parents didn't do the same was because they loved me. And that's why my mom only beat the crap out of me every day instead of R-ing and murdering me. In reality, when telling people about the abuse, it's hard enough to get them to believe me, let alone do something. And I probably would have been much better off in foster care. Sheesh, what a supportive family. I'm sorry this happened to you. That's infuriating to read. I'm so sorry. There is abusive parenting, and then there is that. I feel just awful for the OP, and frankly, this is why I am such a supporter of the idea that the only family that matters is the family you choose. Any child who's been treated like this by a parent should feel comfortable cutting those parents out of their life forever. And anyone in a situation like this, please talk to someone you trust and get help. Story 2. My ex-stepdad owned a restaurant where I worked as a busboy when I was a teenager. He was always very tough on me, berating my work, etc., while telling me that he was going easy on me, and when I got a job in the real world, his favorite phrase, my bosses would be so much tougher on me. I quit a month before my 16th birthday and went to work at the local Dairy Queen and found out he was full of crap. My mom left him shortly after that, thankfully, worked at an ice cream shop for my first job, and told people how cruel and shady the managers/owners are. That's just what jobs are like. You have an easy job. It only gets worse. I was contemplating taking my own life because I was bullied by management. Once a manager pushed me and started talking crap on my mom, I quit. Turns out literally everywhere else is a much better work environment, and you shouldn't feel like crying or throwing up when going into work. Edit. Thanks for the kind comments, everyone. I did not expect this to blow up as much as it did. Story 3. You can't eat steak that is pink on the inside. That's how you get sick. Believe this till I was about 19, until I learned that it pretty much can be as red in center as you like so long as it's properly seared. Turned out my mom just didn't like rare steak and felt uncomfortable making it for me and my sister, so she just lied. If the steak wasn't black, it's raw, according to my mom. To be fair, I would never have got into leather work if it wasn't for my mother's inability to cook steak. Yeah, that's my wife. Unless it's cooked enough to dry out any traces of juices, she's convinced it's bleeding. Story 4. My mom would always tell me, take that look off your face or it will freeze like that when I was little. I took that as fact. I really wanted dimples like my friend down the street, so I would sit in my room with pencil erasers pushed into my cheeks forever. No dimples still. Odd, I never smiled because I have dimples when I smile, and I thought they were girly. I ended up losing weight around 21 years old, and now they jump onto my cheeks at the slightest grin. Dimples are adorable regardless of gender. Own it, dude. Story 5. D&D is a satanic cult that will lure you in order to offer you up for sacrifice. Oh, well, no, Mom. The really weird thing is, in the vanilla rules, making deals with devils and demons is typically a terrible idea that will backfire sooner or later. All the potential satanic things in the game are presented as bad things to oppose. It reminds me of the Doom Scare. Yes, there are demons, but the point is to kill them. Demons are the bad guys. Oh, the satanic panic really did a number on moms. So fun story. My mom found some D&D books I borrowed from my friend and flipped out. She considered them books for the devil's stuff. But this does not dissuade me from playing. With a basic understanding of the rules and character sheets, I had to handwrite everything. I built basic monsters, maps, weapons, stats, etc. I still called it D&D, telling my mom it stood for D's, my name, dice. I literally explained to her what Dungeons and Dragons was. She was bragging to her friends about how good it was that my friends and I were playing a game that used math, imagination, and teamwork. Hilarious. D's dice. Ah, the satanic panic, helped along by old chick-tracked Dark Dungeon. I absolutely love the idea that parents used to think D&D was absolutely evil and part of some satanic ritual. Now, those of us who are really into tabletop role-playing games know that the only part of D&D that's evil is the whole gross corporate side of the game. Story 6. I would be unemployable if I didn't learn cursive handwriting. Parents and teachers made me think that every job interview would have a cursive test in which they would measure the loops on the L's or something. Seriously, I've never once used cursive since taking the ACT. It was on the ACT? Weird. My public schooling spanned the 2000s, so we were forced to learn cursive in 3rd grade, got told it was the way of the world, then started learning to type in class instead starting the next year. In other words, I always got told that cursive was the faster way to write, but it always took me like 4 times as long to write in cursive. Same here on all counts. We were only allowed to write cursive in class for the 3rd grade. I only remember enough to sign my name. At least for me, it's not faster, it's not easier to write. I find many people's cursive borderline impossible to read, and aside from signatures, I've never used it. Cursive is pointless, even in signatures, because as pointed out, no one uses proper cursive to sign their names. You can't read most people's signatures. It is so pointless. I was forced to learn cursive, and then by the time I got to college, I recall multiple professors saying, "Don't write in friggin' cursive. If you do, I won't accept the assignment." Story 7. I was born left-handed. My pops used to smack the crap out of me if I used my left hand, in essence forcing me to be right-handed. I had to constantly remind myself to use the hand with my birthmark to avoid smacks. As an adult, I asked my pops why he forced me to be right-handed, and he gave some tepid response about, "When you're left-handed, you have a tendency to pull that way when you're driving, exposing you to oncoming traffic." Sounded like BS to me and is confirmed by all the left-handed drivers of the world that don't spontaneously drive into oncoming traffic. If anyone has any ideas, I'd love to know. For reference, my pops is an old-school Vietnamese dude. I feel like it's a cultural thing, but I was raised American and have no effing idea. I did a real estate closing a few years ago for a recent middle-aged Chinese immigrant. She looked at my writing with wide eyes and said, "You're left-handed, so am I." I was confused because she was writing with her right hand, so I asked, and she said that in China she wasn't allowed to write with her left hand and that they'd smack her when she tried. My mother would be slapped for using her left hand as a young girl. Apparently, it was considered a sign of the devil. I mean, I'm left-handed and sometimes get an urge to pull out into oncoming traffic, but I think that's just a me thing. I feel like the idea of being left-handed being some evil is in a few cultures, and frankly, I don't mind saying that that is a cultural idea I don't respect. I acknowledge it, but I will not respect something that would have parents hitting kids and forcing them to use their non-dominant hand, which can cause issues down the line. Story 8. We can't pay $1 to go in the haunted house because they might not have a bathroom in there. What if you have to go to the bathroom? Just admit you're cheap, Dad. I'd much rather have this than my experience growing up. My dad would always complain the ticket booths about how it was free that day one day, so it should be free today. Or he would ask for some discount that didn't apply to him, or claim to have a coupon that maybe he had at one point or is expired now. We would have escalating levels of managers come and talk to us, and he would keep doing it. He made my mom cry sometimes. I was just embarrassed. He sees it as good business sense. They think you're stupid if you don't ask for a discount. He doesn't realize this isn't a bazaar. He doesn't even come from a country where that's normal. The worst part about all this? We could afford it. My dad just hates paying for experiences and would rather go shopping or do anything else. Edit. I put it in the story because I knew it would come up that it seems to have been glossed over by many. Again, he doesn't even come from a country where bartering/haggling is commonplace, at least not in large cities where my family is from. The most you can do is maybe ask for a bulk discount if you're at an independent stall in the market or something, which is something I'm not against, and it doesn't hurt to ask. However, my dad takes it a step further and feels that just because he's him, he should get greater discounts/free things. When I worked in the service industry, I could never figure out why people would go through all that hassle just to save a couple of dollars. Isn't your time and dignity worth $2 whole? Not to my dad. He would rather act a fool and save $1. We were in his home country one time at a place that charged the equivalent of $1 for parking/entrance. As soon as we pull up to the guy, my dad starts a spiel, and I just roll down the window, I'm sitting right behind him, and hand the guy the money while saying, "I got it." Guys let us in, Dad starts saying he was trying to save us money and I shouldn't have done that. My mom, for once, didn't enable him and said she's sick of that. It's a business and they need to make money too. And she's not in the mood to be embarrassed today. It happened to be at almost the exact same place where we had the worst of those confrontations with managers only 20 plus years later. I'm all for haggling and bartering at places where it's expected. I worked at a place that would haggle, and I enjoyed the back and forth, but any place else, I wouldn't haggle for anything, and most of my life, I've barely scraped by with enough money. Either something was worth the price listed, or it wasn't worth my time. The end. Maybe that's just me and the way I was raised. I'd be interested to hear what you all think. Story 9. Boys only want one thing from girls. Be careful in high school. That's all the boys will want to do. Turns out the one thing all the boys I hung out with wanted from me was a turn at playing Pokemon on my Game Boy. Same, dude. My mom didn't even let me go to my gay friend's house. I'm a girl, he's a boy, because she was afraid he was faking being gay and would arm me. Y'all have some seriously paranoid parents. I guess my mother was too, just in different ways. Whenever I want to go to a friend's house, my mom has to know the friend's parents, their phone number, if the friend has any siblings, brothers especially, what will we do, how long I'll be there, etc. Then she'll wonder why I don't go out with friends much. Story 10. If you get in trouble at school, it will go on your permanent record and ruin your life. Not once has anyone from college admissions to prospective employers to loan officers so much as mentioned the legendary permanent record. I went back to my old high school a year after I graduated and asked to see what was in my permanent record, and they'd already thrown it away. It was only permanent temporarily. That my two choices in life were either Harvard or McDonald's. Sheesh, bit of a gray area in between those two extremes. So can I get fries with that? You may get fries with your master's degree. Story 11. Sniffing kills brain cells. I didn't sniff or snort even during colds because I was terrified I would lose my brain cells. Turns out my mom thinks sniffing is annoying and didn't want to hear it. Story 12. When we would go to the beach, I would never want to get out of the water, so my mom told me that staying in the water too long would make me waterlogged. She said she could look into my eyes and see the level of water in my system. If the water raised above my iris, that meant I had to get out and let the water drain before I would drown. I believed this for far too long. I was swimming with a friend, and we had a track meet the next day. Her dad hollered out to us, "Don't get waterlogged." She said we could soak up too much water, we'd be heavier when we raced the next day. Ah, parenting, when lying to your child is easier than just explaining how you feel to them. Honestly, I'm being a brat, but also that might just be true. I don't have kids. I don't have all the answers on how to raise them right. Go ahead and lie to your kids for all I care. I'm sure they won't internalize that and complain about it decades later online like all of these people. Story 13. That if I used one brand of shampoo and a different brand of conditioner, that my hair would fall out. Also, when I was 5 or 6, I asked what would happen if I went the opposite way that you turn the turn signal. My mom told me the car would explode and kill us. Not sure why she told me that crap. Because it was hilarious to watch the rising panic in your eyes as she signaled right, then twitched the wheel left. How do you know my mom so well? Immediately after telling me that she veered the opposite way of the turn signal, I still remember that cry, lol. She's got a dark sense of humor. Story 14. Microwaves will give you cancer. Cell phones will give you cancer. Smart meters will give you cancer. Wi-Fi will give you cancer. Conventionally grown food will give you cancer. Western medicine will give you cancer. Antibiotics will give you cancer. My mom was obsessed with cancer. Edit, forgot, sitting near the TV will give you cancer. Then she bought a 12-inch black and white TV. Bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So basically, you were raised by WebMD? Story 15. People you meet on the internet are swindlers or serial killers. Overall, the amount of people who are out there to get me and should be feared all day round were severely exaggerated. That explains some of my social problems, I guess. As a people on the internet, I'm offended. I haven't swindled or serial killed anyone in years. I've been clean for a few months. That's hilarious because my mom absolutely ripped my dad a new one for letting me have internet access in the early 2000s. Don't you know the internet is filled with serial killers and arrests? She fell for an IRS gift card scam last year. Story 16. Getting less than 90% in school will make me a trash man and live a very miserable life. Edit. When I saw 100 messages on my phone, I thought it was my WhatsApp. Holy damn, I was surprised that it was this site. No, they're not Asians, they're Egyptians. I'm the trash man. I'm gonna come out and start eating trash. Nobody wants to watch a 60-year-old man eat trash, Frank. Hey, I got less than 90% in school, and look at me! Oh no, maybe don't. Oh, what have I done? Oh, wait, I have this channel with awesome subscribers. Holy crap, folks, screw school, do bad! Okay, well, not that bad. I was in high school's 80%, actually. I'm smart, just lazy. And apparently I probably have ADHD, according to my therapist. True story, she has me reading a book on it called Delivered from Distraction. Pretty good so far. What the hell was this story about? Story 17. When you press the red button with the triangle in the car, all the doors fall off. When teaching the class how to use the classroom computer, my first grade teacher told us all that if we clicked the trash can icon on the desktop, it would make the computer explode and we would get in a lot of trouble. I'm so using this. I laugh so hard at this mental image. I kind of want one. Story 18. If you unscrew your belly button, your bum will fall off. I did my best to avoid screwdrivers for a large part of my childhood because I lacked the willpower not to stuff them into my belly button. I was terrified at the thought of losing my bum, but intrigued by the possibility. Your comment is putting me to tears. But I don't understand. Were you obsessed with sticking screwdrivers in your belly button before or after your mom/father told you that? Not OP, but I was fascinated with my belly button. I remember that I kept sticking things in there. Story 19. Every rice left on your plate would be a new pimple on your face. Don't leave any food on your plate. Don't you know there's kids starving in Africa? Mom, there's kids starving in America. Africa doesn't have a monopoly on poverty. My Grammy told me to eat all your food because there are children dumpster diving. I intentionally threw food away after that because I wanted to make sure that children have good food to eat. I always hated that line of thinking. Like parents, sure, teach your kids to appreciate the food they have, but don't guilt them into cleaning their plates. That's how you get chubby boys like me, dang it. Food waste isn't a person-to-person problem. It's a problem that I can't possibly get into in a short comment in a video like that. I'm also definitely not smart enough to speak on it at much length. Story 20. After you berated me like this and you move to that B, you will never succeed in life. You will not graduate school, you will not work, and you will fail. Dad, 8 years ago on the phone, to 13-year-old me on the day I moved indefinitely to my mother after 9 years of abuse. I work, I graduated school, and I did not fail at the stuff he said I was going to fail at. I might have failed in other things, though, but that is another story. I'm glad you got out. That is not okay. I hope 13-year-old you knows that it was not your fault and it was not your responsibility to stay with your dad. Story 21. My mom warned me as a kid that eating the loose pieces of dried ramen from the pack would make me deathly ill. I kept doing it with no problems. One day she said that in front of my dad when I was a teen, and he just gave her this, "What the F are you talking about?" look. I was told it would give you worms. Those are the best bits. I just don't like dry ramen, which is apparently kind of unusual. I swear, I've met more people who like eating dry ramen noodles than who don't, which strikes me as pretty odd. Story 22. I only wish I had a dire warning of any kind. In the late 70s, I wanted to buy my first car. It was a 1977 Triumph TR7. It was the most unreliable car I ever owned. My dad later told me that he knew it would be a money pit, and when I asked him why he didn't warn me, he said I should learn from my mistakes. Thanks, Dad. Oh, that reminds me of my father. I asked him to tag along for the home inspection for my first house. Months after I purchased the home, he told me it was a money pit and that I should have asked for his advice. Dad, you are a certified home inspector and I asked you to be there during the inspection. Story 23. If I cross my eyes, they might end up staying like that. Edit. Disclaimer. Some comments I've received believe this to be true. I'm no expert, but did a quick Google search which also said it was a myth. Cross your eyes at your own risk. I'm cross-eyed. Might tell that to my kids. Story 24. Watching TV will turn your brains into mush. I thought they meant literally. My parents said the same, except they invented a serious disease called mushy brain, which affected kids who watch too much TV and yes, literally turns your brain into mush. Terrified 8-year-old me. Thank goodness the oversaturation of screens in the modern day has absolutely no negative mental side effects. Maybe just listen to our videos sometimes. Maybe that'll help. Story 25. If you play too many video games, you'll have to get little braces on your fingers. Mom, the kid at the cash register at the grocery store had them because he played too many video games. Just wait for the carpal tunnel to set in around age 40, and we can talk again. Story 26. My parents are Korean, so fan death. When I leave my fan on at night, I feel so alive. What is fan death? In Korean culture, some people believe that fans rob rooms of oxygen, and if you fall asleep with a fan on, you'll suffocate. Almost every fan in Korea has a fan with a built-in timer for that reason. Story 27. That if I kept picking my nose, my head would cave in. This can happen if you get bored using your finger and use an automatic drill instead. Story 28. You won't walk around life with a calculator in your pocket. Story 29. Learn math because you won't be walking around with a calculator in your pocket. I'm typing right now on my calculator. Story 30. People who disobey their parents end up in prison. I mean, if your parents tell you don't go to prison and you disobey them, sure, but what if they tell you to go to prison and you disobey them, huh? What happens then, smart guy? This is beyond science. Uh-oh, somebody's getting a little tricky. But I mean, also, if your parents tell you to murder someone or rob a grocery store, also don't listen to them. Story 31. Oral intercourse is dangerous and not pleasurable for either party. Oh my, how very wrong this statement was. Dude who would even lie about giving head. A mom who didn't want her daughter sucking D. It backfired hard. Either that or she used too much teeth and ruined it for every guy she's with. That is one heck of a lie for both sides as far as I'm concerned. Love to receive and I love to give it. Seriously, it's one of my favorite parts. And yes, I've seen those of you who joke that is how I hurt my jaw. Guffaw, guffaw. Story 32. My mom used to tell me that self-touching would turn someone into an aurist because your body doesn't know any different once you get addicted. Mental health and addiction played a large part in a lot of her ideas about how the world functions. 20 years on, she's doing much better. Never had a conversation with my family about self-touching. Story 33. My mom is convinced that if I don't take all honors and AP classes in high school, I'm going to drop out and not get into college. Whenever I try to drop out of a class, she emails my counselor and tells her to put me back in. Edit, thanks for all the supportive replies. I'll make sure to read them all when I get home from school. I took honors and AP classes in high school, and guess what? I dropped out of college. Twice. Ha! Story 34. The world should have ended in 2012. You mean again? It already ended in 2000. Y2K got me. Story 35. Never get in a car with a stranger. Joke's on you, Mom. I've got an app on my phone now to tell strangers I want to get in their car. Story 36. I was always skinny growing up, and even though a lot of my family is overweight, I also had no interest in physical activities. My parents always used to tell me that if I didn't exercise, I'd start getting fat by the time I was 25. Joke's on them. I didn't start putting on weight until I was 30. That happened to my cousin. Skinny and fit throughout high school, got into his 20s, and I don't know if it's metabolism or his wife's amazing cooking, but the guy packed on a few. We all did in our 20s, but hey, as long as you're happy, you're beautiful. Story 37. Watching the TV will give you square eyes. When I was 4 years old, I took a mirror down with me whenever I went to watch TV to ensure my eyes had not gone square. 20 years later, they're still round. Complete BS. Story 38. Dungeons and Dragons is for devil worshippers. I'm now one of the many nerds devil worshipping. Just imagine if Morkborg existed back in the 80s and 90s when parents were saying that. D&D would have looked like a children's show comparatively, and I don't mean that just because there was a children's cartoon in the 80s. That was awesome. This joke is just for my TTRPG fans out there. The rest of you enjoy the confusion, or just look up Morkborg. You'll get it. Story 39. Not really a warning, but my dad told me I was Princess Poopsalada of Lulu Island. I was maybe 4 or 5 and went to school bragging about how I was a princess and they better respect my authority. The school called my parents and my dad just about died from laughter. Story 40. Don't sleep with socks. You'll become blind. This is true. I lost my eyesight. Story 41. That gay people will trick me into intercourse. That's like a chef tricking me into eating a burger. It isn't a trick. I want it, please. In fact, make it a double. For the burger, that is, obviously. And the other thing. Story 42. If you sit too close to the TV, you will go blind. I've been working in IT in front of a monitor for 20 years now. I'm 41 and still 2020. Story 43. Don't talk to strangers on the internet. Want some candy? Story 44. If you keep touching yourself, you'll go blind. Thoroughly tested and definitively false. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.